Good morning, guys. Today we're going to talk about the water cycle. While we're talking about the water cycle, we're going to practice taking notes on things that we're hearing. So we're going to be able to listen to information and put it neatly on a piece of paper as you follow along. All right, so when we look at the water cycle, I like to start with evaporation. So all of the water on Earth's surface, lakes, oceans, bodies of water, evaporate into the sky. This happens on warmer days as the warm weather heats up the water particles and make them move through kinetic energy. As the particles move faster, they're able to rise as they're lighter and more spread out into the air. Through transpiration, it's a similar process as evaporation, as through the leaves and soil of vegetation and the earth, water is sucked up into the air also. When the water begins to come to the air, it starts to form condensation. Condensation is what clouds are. These water particles in the air are still spread apart. They have a large surface area, and they begin to form these clouds. As the condensation builds, the water gets more and heavier. That precipitation begins to happen. Precipitation is that light drizzle, rain that comes down, and in certain temperatures we see snow or ice. The water runs back down to earth, and we see that runoff can happen. So runoff is a deposition of water that finds its way back to the oceans, lakes, bodies of water, and can settle in the soil and help feed the vegetation on our planet. All right, so we learned some information. Let's start taking notes as we talk about it again. So today, we want to put our title. Our title is the water cycle. I like to start at the top of my page and put our main topic. Our main topic, the water cycle. Okay? Now we see we have several steps of the water cycle, so let's take some notes on the water cycle and label them down correctly. Let's start with the letter A, capital A, period, and we're going to talk about evaporation. Evaporation is the process, so we'll put a dash down here, the process of water changing from liquid to gas. So that's the process of the warm weather heating up the water particles and then releasing enough kinetic energy, moving fast enough to change from liquid to gas and rise up into the atmosphere. This is a process that we like to look at as kinetic energy. Kinetic energy is something that we'll learn about later in our education, but it's always fun to be able to look back and say, hey, I've heard that word before. So kinetic energy, the process of heating up these water particles, making them move faster so they can spread out and move up into the air. All right, so evaporation, and then we have the process we can put transpiration. Transpiration. So transpiration is the evaporation of water from vegetation so that's a fancy word for saying leaves and plants of all kinds, soils, etc. All right, then we want to talk about condensation. Condensation, so we'll do a B. Condensation is our next big step in the water cycle. So condensation from gas to liquid. So it changes, water changes from gas to liquid. We can see condensation even on things like a can of soda. So on a warm day, have you ever had a cold can of soda or sparkling water, and you open it, it's cold right from the fridge, and there's water that starts to form on the outside of the can or the bottom. And you see this water, it's called dew. It begins to form because the cold air of the inside of the can is meeting with the warm air. So it begins to cool down when we see condensation, and the water particles begin to merge back together. All right? Now, let's talk about perspiration. Oh, precipitation rather, I'm sorry. I guess it's kind of similar. You're sweating or you're raining. So precipitation is the water that falls to earth. Okay? So the clouds collect so much water that the particles have to join together. There's not enough room for them to be so spread out that they can be light enough to stay in the air. So they join together, become heavy, and fall to the earth. Depending on the temperature, we talked about how it could be snow, ice, or just rain. It settles in the soil, it's absorbed by vegetation, or it runs off and fills back lakes, oceans, and bodies of water.